According to Henry Ford, anybody who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80, because learning is what keeps the mind young. So to celebrate hashtag Forever Young Advocacy, let's learn new set of topics this afternoon. To my fellow educators, a pleasant afternoon to us all. I am your reporter for today. I am teacher Shalome A. Mudikilio, and I will tackle about SWOT analysis or SWOT analysis, gap analysis, and stakeholder analysis. So to start with, let's define first the common denominator of these three, and that is the word analysis. What does analysis mean? So analysis is a process of breaking a complex topic or substance into smaller parts in order to gain a better understanding of it. So, in other words, analysis is a detailed examination of the elements or structure of something. Okay? So now let's jump to the first topic, and that is the SWOT analysis. Okay. What does SWOT mean? SWOT or SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it is just an acronym for the four aspects that we need to tackle in the SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So how to do a SWOT analysis? First, you have to draw up a SWOT analysis matrix. This is a 2x2 grid with one square for each of the four aspects of SWOT, that is their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So for under the quadrant strength, you have to answer the following questions. Number 1, what do you do well? Number 2, what unique resources can you draw on? And then lastly, what do others see as your strengths? And then under the quadrant weaknesses, these are the questions that you have to consider. What could you improve? Where do you have fewer resources than others? And then what are the others likely to see as your weaknesses? And then under the quadrant opportunities, you have to check for the following questions. What opportunities are open to you? What trends could you take advantage of? And then lastly, how can you turn your strengths into opportunities? And then lastly, under the quadrant threats, you have to answer the following questions. What threats could harm you? And then what is your competition doing? And then what threats do your weaknesses expose to you? So these are the questions that you have to check on threats. Actually, these questions are just your guidelines as to what you can put in every quadrant. You just have to bear in mind that for the strengths and weaknesses, it is internal. It means within your organization. And as for the opportunities and threats, they are external factors. So they are outside your organization. So let's talk about each one of these deeply. Starting off with strengths. Okay. Strengths refers to any aspect of your organization which brings clear advantages. So it refers to the things that your organization is particularly doing well. Your strengths are the integral part of your organization. You have to think what makes it tick, or what do you do better than anybody else. So that's strengths. Now let's have the weaknesses. Okay, weaknesses, just think about what you could improve and the sorts of practices you should avoid. So with just like strength, weaknesses are internal. So you have to be honest and be realistic, and you are ready to face any unpleasant truth about your organization as soon as possible, because it will make the SWOT analysis very valuable once you have the information laid on. So whether you find it so difficult for you to accept that it's really what's happening within your organization, you have to write all of those so that your SWOT analysis will be effective. So now let's have the opportunities. So with opportunities, okay, it is something to do with openings or chances for something positive to happen. This doesn't mean to be a game changer or something big and grand. It can be a small opportunity that can make your organization more competitive. So you have to grab even a tiny or a small opportunity, because you don't know that it might be a great impact in your organization. You don't have to seek or find something big and grand and what you call game changer right away. You have to start little by little, and then immediately it will open doors to greater opportunities. Okay, and then lastly, we have the threats. So threats are anything that can negatively affect your business or organization from the outside. So with threats, be you have to be very um, careful about this and very vigilant, as well as you need to anticipate these threats before it comes, and you have to have a plan of action, a set of actions as to how you can fight off those threats before you become a victim of them and stalls your growth. So it has something to do with planning ahead and making sure that there is no loopholes in any of your plan, so that whenever these threats come in, you already have a solution to counter-strike that specific threat that is possible to occur. So that's it. And then you can definitely use SWOT analysis to make the most of what you've got to your organization's best understanding and best advantage, by reducing the chances of failure, by understanding what you're lacking and eliminating hazards that would otherwise catch you unaware. So that's SWOT analysis. Now let's have the second topic, and that is the gap analysis. So from the word gap, it's the distance or the space in between from where your current place and your ideal place to be. So gap analysis compares the current state with an ideal state or goals. So this gap analysis would answer you the question of how to trim, fix, expand, or change your business or your organization to the next level. You might have lots of guesses about what's going on, and your team might have different opinions as to how you can achieve your objectives or goals. With gap analysis, it will lead you to detailed examination and based on where your organization is currently in and where you want to be, by acting on facts rather than assumptions for you to reach your full potential. That's the use of gap analysis. Now, how do we do gap analysis? You just have to follow these 4 easy steps to conduct a gap analysis. So, step 1 is analyze your current state. Of course, you have to do this. Okay. Discover where your organization currently is before you can make a plan for reaching your goals. Of course, with gap analysis, you have to think of where your organization is standing right now, or what's the current state or condition of your organization or your business. And then What's important at this stage is understanding the root of the problem, which is much easier to see once you laid out all the information needed. You have listed all your current state or current practices that your organization taking is taking, and then all as well as all the contributing factors. In fact, your gap analysis process should evaluate everything you currently do so you get the big picture. So you have to be very specific, detailed, and put everything uh, under the sun about your organization. Okay, that's step number one. Now let's have step number two. Okay, identify the ideal future state. The sky is the limit and you should dream big. So in this phase, once you have the big picture figured out by doing the first step, you can already understand how your team or organization currently functions. You need to become very idealistic, where you would like to be and what's not happening that should be. Right now, the sky's the limit. So you can dream big. You can picture out what you want your organization to be or your business to be. So you have to write it very specifically for you to make it easier to plan out the steps or procedures for you to achieve that. That is the later step, and that's step number 3. Find the gap and evaluate solutions. Decide which solutions will most effectively bridge the gap. So it is exposing what's missing between your performance and your potential. So what's the gap between your performance and your potential? You might be performing, not really to your full potential. It means that you can do better than you are currently in or your state right now. So in the end, how you bridge the gap will depend on your organizational and team priorities. You should work together to find what's working best within your organization. So you really have to brainstorm and get everyone on board and let them grasp what do you want to be and how you can achieve that, because everyone should be a team player in this phase. Okay, next is the last step for gap analysis. Create and implement a plan to bridge the gap. So establish a clear strategy and actionable objectives to help you actualize your transition. So the changes that you implement may also affect other teams and departments. So it's important to come up with a plan. Okay, once you come up with a plan, you have to make sure that everyone's on board, just what I said earlier. Everyone is aware of it, of the changes that you're making, so that everything will, not really smoothly, but gradually it becomes smooth. So everyone should be aware of what to do, and they should know about the whole plan. Okay, so that they can contribute better and they can perform to their best potential. Okay, that's gap analysis. Now we're down to the last topic, and that is the stakeholder analysis. So I am sure that anyone knows what is a stakeholder. A stakeholder, when it comes to any organizational project or structure, all of the internal people and teams who the project will involve or affect are called its stakeholders. So stakeholder analysis is a process of identifying stakeholders before the project begins. So you need to write down or check or enumerate the people that will be involved in the project or will be affected by it. So how do we conduct or how do we do a stakeholder analysis? Okay, you just have to follow these easy, three easy steps to conduct stakeholder analysis. Step one is to determine who your stakeholders are. Okay? Start by brainstorming with your team and list of all the possible stakeholders for your project. So you can reduce this later. You can reduce the list later, but you don't want to miss a potentially pivotal stakeholders at this early stage. So as on the step one, you can write who do you think will benefit or will be affected by your project, and they are the stakeholders. So write as many as you can, and then later on you can check if you can then lessen the list of the stakeholders by evaluating if they really are going to be part of the project or not. So, but for the phase one, you have to write as many as you can. Okay, next step, number 2, is to group and prioritize these stakeholders. Okay? You have to categorize them in terms of their influence, interest, and levels of participation in your project. One example of how to do this is by using the power or interest grid. So this looks like this. The power or interest grid looks like this. There are 4 quadrants: monitor, low power, low interest. We have keep informed, low power but high interest, and then keep satisfied, high power but low interest, and we have the manage closely with high power and high interest. So yeah, let's start with monitor with low power, low interest. With these stakeholders, just keep these people informed periodically, but do not overdo it because they have low power and low interest. And then for the keep informed with low power, high interest, you'll want to keep these people informed and check in with them regularly to make sure they are not experiencing problems on the project. Okay? And then for keep satisfied, high power with low interest, because of their influence in the company, you should work to keep these people satisfied. But because they haven't shown a deep interest in your project, you could turn them off if you over communicate with them. And then let's have lastly, manage closely. High power, high interest. These are your most important stakeholders, and you should prioritize keeping them happy with your project's progress. So these are really the very core stakeholders of your project. And then there's another approach popularized in the book Making Strategy, Mapping Out Strategic Success. Groups stakeholders into 4 different but somehow similar categories. This looks like this. Okay. So they use the words crowd for low power and low interest, subjects for low power with high interest, and then context setters for high power with low interest, and then players for high power and high interest. Okay, let's start with the crowd. The low power, low interest. Okay? With the low power, low interest stakeholders are called the crowd. These individuals will require some ongoing communication about the project's progress, but probably the least of all stakeholders, because they have the low power and low interest. And then let's move to the subjects. Okay, the subjects are with the low power, and high interest stakeholders are called subjects. They can offer great insights and ideas to the project, but whom you don't need to always say yes to. So they can suggest or give ideas, but not necessarily you have to always say yes to what they say. You have to evaluate the weight of their suggestion and the pros and cons if you agree or not. So that's it. And then we have these context setters. These are with the high power, low interest stakeholders. They can have a lot of influence over the project but don't want to be involved in the details. Keep them up to date. Okay, so just keep them updated every now and then. And then lastly, we have the players. These are the um, high power, high interest stakeholders or individuals with whom you will want to collaborate and keep fully engaged, because then again they are the best stakeholders in your project. They are the ones with high power and high interest and would ensure the success of your project as well. So you will then after that you will want to ask yourself questions about stakeholders, such as what motivates these stakeholders and what other priorities do they have, and how can we align our projects with those priorities, and will this stakeholder likely have a positive view of our project? If not, what can we do about it? So you just have to bear in mind those questions so that the stakeholder analysis will be effective and somehow beneficial to your organization. And then the last step is step 3. Figure out how to communicate with and win buy-in from each type of stakeholder. So figure out how to communicate with and win buy-in from each type of stakeholders. So you just have to um, strategically. Okay, again, you just have to think strategically about how best to earn the ongoing support of each of these stakeholder types. And you have to answer the following 3 questions that I given you earlier. They are: what motivates this stakeholder? What other priorities do they have? And how can we align our project with those priorities? And then lastly, will these stakeholders likely have a positive view of our project? If not, what can we do about it? So that's it for our stakeholder analysis. So before I will end my report, I will give you this quotation: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. As an educator, these 3 types of analysis, the SWOT, SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, gap analysis, and stakeholder analysis, are very vital in our field, because when we need to plan about a project, we can start by doing an analysis so that we will be guided on what and how to achieve our objectives. So in planning, you have to plan very well, because if you don't because if you fail to plan, then you really plan to fail. So as easy as that. So that ends my report. Thank you so much and good afternoon. For those who are having difficulty viewing my PowerPoint presentation here in my laptop because of the very small screen, I have attached the PowerPoint presentation together with the handouts. So you can definitely check my PowerPoint with the handouts I've given, so that if you have some clarifications about my topic, it will be very helpful. So again, this is Shalame Modikilyu, your reporter for today about SWOT analysis, gap analysis, and stakeholder analysis. Thank you and keep safe, everyone. Bye!